from noob to maxi, no matter what bags you hold. Just sit back and relax to the sweet sounds of Monero's latest progress. Or if you're feeling inspired, join us on stage. Remember, the only thing that can stop Monero is a false belief that it can be stopped. And if you want to win the revolution faster, we recommend you remove your XMR from all custodial exchanges immediately. Warning, voting accidents are common around here. Don't forget to properly secure your private keys. Monerotopia starts now.
Alrighty. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
So I feel like everybody's a little tired today. I feel like.
Yeah.
It's raining over here. I don't know about you.
Is it? It's a little. Yeah, it's been raining a little bit this past week.
Yeah, it's dreary day. It's been a depressing week with all the news as we inch towards World War III. I feel like it's eating at people. I don't know about you, but I've experienced that in my personal life. I'm seeing there's a lot of I don't know, reaction, right? It's all this, there's so much propaganda and so much information coming at everybody, right? On Twitter, it's like it's kind of hard to watch. I don't know. Have you been tuning into any of it?
Yeah, I've seen some of it, but I think for most people, part of the solution is like just to not look at Twitter so much, because
that is the solution, but easier said than done, right? It's built to be looked at, for better or worse. I mean, and it's just, I mean, I remember,
and that's saying to myself, because I look at Twitter way too often.
Yeah, but that is the solution. I remember when the Iraq War, the first Iraq War, I was a kid, and I was watching it with my dad on CNN, and that seemed crazy at the time, right? You're watching war on TV, but now it's just a whole nother level. I mean, we're getting like first person viewer, right? As people are getting massacred. It's hard. It's hard to deal with. I don't think people are really meant to deal with that type of stuff, right?
No, and then the amount of like crazy propaganda. Like I've seen so many things that were like pulled within a day.
Yeah, it's impossible.
It was proven to be like not true, or wasn't proven to be true. It's just like they just bombard you with this information,
and the damage is already done, right? It's like, oh, we realized this was misinformation. It's like, oh, too late, 100 million people saw this, passed it around, and have like reacted. I don't know what the solution is there. I guess we're just in this phase where we're gonna have to sort things out. But it seems like things are only gonna get worse for some time, especially with AI. I mean,
oh yeah, like this, like at least several years ago, it wasn't at least possible to do a lot of the AI stuff. But now, I mean, it's pretty easy to modify a picture or make something new that will trick so many people. And yeah, it'll eventually get proven to be false and proven to be AI. But by then, so many people will already have seen it and believe it, and decisions will be made on that. So
exactly.
Yep.
Well, I'm sure that will come up again in our discussion. We got Tony. We haven't had him for a while. He's going to be doing the news today. We're going to actually start with the news today because I think Tony has to go. We don't have a special guest today, but we have a bunch of news, so we might as well move things along as quickly as possible.
All right. Let's jump into the news.
Get going with the news.
And now for our weekly news segment.
Hey guys.
Tony!
It's been a long time, man.
I know. It's a bit difficult just because the time zone, because it's 6 p.m. It's kind of more difficult, so that's why sometimes I can make it, but
where are you?
At the time you're in, that's crazy.
I'm in Romania still.
Oh, you're still there. Wow.
Yeah.
You look all grown up, man. You look like a grown man now. It's been a long time.
I know.
Is that what Romania does too? Does it mature you faster?
Let me.
Is life good over there?
Yeah. It's actually interesting because a lot of when I'm in the US, everybody's kind of scared to go, especially in this area because of the war in Ukraine, and they're saying how can you go? But even though there's a war there and in other places as well, now in the world, people still live life as they can, as they still have fun. And I mean, we're not really affected by it. We just get a bunch of Ukrainians, but yeah, it's good.
Oh, you're getting a lot of Ukrainians coming in to Romania.
Yeah, like I think
I know
last year when I came back again, I kept hearing Ukrainian in the city, and it was so odd. And I was like, what the hell? Did I forget my own language? Or and I was like, no, this is actually like a lot of Ukrainian people, because where I live, it's like 5 hours away from the border with Ukraine, so it's very, very close.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also we have Moldova, and there's some stuff. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of stuff, but it's good.
What's the crypto scene these days in Romania?
People do know about Monero, actually. People invested in the local. There was a local cryptocurrency called Elron, which is actually made in my hometown, and
yeah,
that was.
Remember you told me about that? Yeah.
Oh, local crypto, huh? Interesting.
Yeah, but it's actually like it was top 15, I think.
Yeah, Algorand was large at some point.
It was large, yeah. So a lot of people knew about that. And then other than that, I mean, it's kind of like in the US, maybe. Like people know about it, they're aware, but not, especially during this time, not many people maybe invest, only the ones that, know more of it. So overall, it's okay. I mean, it could be a lot better. But people do know of Monero, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, things obviously everywhere. I think price is down, so people aren't paying attention.
Yeah, for sure.
But not in Monero land, right? We keep chugging along, building new things, growing adoption.
For sure.
But yeah, take it away with the news, man. I know we got a lot of stuff. So
yes.
Go ahead, go for it.
Also, what I wanted to say is that it's kind of interesting how, I mean, overall Monero boils down to just privacy and having financial freedom, which it will enable more overall freedom. But because it ties into politics and economy, and there's always things to talk about in that regard, and also of course updates to Monero. So I think there's gonna be endless Monero news, because in the beginning I was thinking, I mean, I guess you mentioned one time, Doug, that people said that maybe you're gonna run out of stuff to say eventually, but not really. It's endless stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Monero represents in my mind the opposite to this movement towards one world government, all that stuff. So yes. As that grows, the importance and significance of Monero grows. So there's no shortage of Monero news.
No,
as we fight world techno tyranny.
For sure not. But yeah, the first thing that I want to mention is Fluorine Fermi update, which has been released. So let's open it. So this is version 0.18.3.1, release of the Monero software, and it's a lot of stuff. This release optimizes wallet refresh and contains important bug fixes. So it's a huge update. Optimizes wallet refresh by reducing periodic RPC calls and a lot of other things. Here's the contributors for the release. So if you want to know more about it, click on the link and then make sure to update as well. Then Gombat posted on Twitter, to whoever I sold, he said, there's 1,000 ARS bill for Monero at last Monerotopia conference. I inform you that today its value has finally gone below $1 USD. And with that, the last bill of the native fauna of the Argentine Republic series perishes. By far, Monero, our national bird. Yeah, inflation in Latin America is crazy.
Yeah, out of control.
It's out of control, which is it's very sad. But also, like, they have really beautiful banknotes, actually. Actually, nice.
Beautiful, worthless banknotes.
Yeah.
Collector's item one day. Except there's
it sucks because the U.S. still, with the ridiculous amount of inflation we already have, which still isn't nearly as bad as other countries. We have the ugliest dollar bills. We have the strongest dollar, but the ugliest looking bills.
I was gonna say that, but I mean, it's because they kind of all look the same. But I mean, the one thing that I do like when it comes to US dollars is that the size is the same for $1 bill, 10, 50, because in Romania we have all different sizes. So I literally have to. Actually, I'll show you. I have to carry
Oh
two.
yeah, it's like gold backs.
Yeah, I have to carry.
Oh, that's
Actually, I can
funny.
show you. Yeah, I have to carry two wallets because, for example, 5 looks like this, and it gets significantly larger the bigger the value. 100 is like this. I hope you can see it.
Oh yeah, that's like it's like a 1 and a 5 gold back,
Yeah, and then it gets even bigger than this.
but they're like bigger, they're like huge.
Actually, no, this is kind of the same. And I think there's one more 500 bill, and I think that one is huge. So
And I can tell
Yeah, I
that
mean-
1000 is really long. That one's like
yeah.
What
So,
is,
I
what
mean-
is the stability of the currency in Romania? What's inflation like over there?
I'm not sure about the actual numbers, but for example, I know last December I used to pay for a certain milk brand 11 in our currency, and now it's 18, which is a lot. It almost doubled.
Yeah, we're seeing that
I
everywhere.
mean, yeah, so I mean, it's, or for example, okay, back, this is like 2000, I'll give you like larger time frame. 2011, a sandwich was 2.5 in our currency, and you divide that by 5 to get the dollar amount, so it's like 50 cents. Now it's so from 2.5, but imagine it's like in dollars, $2.5, let's say, but in my currency. Now it's like 10 for the same, like 10 years later. So inflation it's obviously not as bad as Latin America, and I can't complain, but I mean, you can definitely see 1 plus 2 plus 3 differences in the
Mhm.
prices, like 1, 2, 3 more dollars.
Yeah, cost of goods,
extra.
everything's going up. I mean, that's even in the U.S., right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I was going in the US in a store and I wanted to buy some tortilla and stuff, and I was shocked by how much I paid for those stuff and how much cheaper they were.
My brother-in-law gave me this yesterday. Silver coin, Krugerrand.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
oh heck
That's
yeah,
really nice.
some actual value.
yeah, I love it. I got a couple of these, but this is growing, man. There's a lot of people that are waking up, right, because of inflation, and they're turning towards whether it's metals or crypto. You got a lot of people turning towards metals, which is cool. But I think that's the road to Monero.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Another thing is, I'm not sure if they've done it to silver as well, but to gold, they identify you for the gold, how much you bought, transfers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what he was telling me about. He's like, I'm realizing as I bought it, I had to essentially give up my ID and everything, and they know who I am, they know how much. And it's like, I could see him moving towards Monero and understanding the importance of Monero, and then he's like thinking about, where do I store all this stuff? How do I keep it?
That's the thing. And
So-
what do you do like if you move or
Right. Or if you want to
Actually-
spend it on the internet, right? It's a little hard to
Yeah.
send it through the internet.
That too. And I have a friend, and this guy, he has huge drawers, like from the floor all the way to the ceiling with a bunch of silver. And like we were making jokes, if you gotta move, I mean those things weigh hundreds of pounds. It's crazy.
Yeah,
And
and
Monero is nothing.
you're making jokes, but it's not a joke, right? Like
No, yeah, no.
it hits the fan.
Yeah.
Something happens, where he's living, similar to what we've seen in other parts of the world. They'll come and take it, or you got to figure out how to move with it. There's so much power in being able to just have a 15-word phrase in your
In a
mind
phone. Yeah.
that you can move around with anywhere and store any amount of money on. It's tremendous amount of power there.
Quite literally, like
Yeah.
you can take a notebook, you write down, and you're done. That's it. All you gotta do is carry this thing or your phone, and you can have millions of dollars stored, or however much amount, But if you have that amount in silver or gold, obviously it's a mountain. And
Yep.
traveling, if you go overseas, it's gonna be difficult to move all of that if you wish to. I mean, yeah.
Ready.
Now this person sold. He said I sold all my Zcash, taking 90+% loss and moving on with my life. Also Zcash parachute for sale. Look at this pathetic.
Capitulation on Zcash.
No, parachute for sale, asking for price to fail. Oh wow. Oh wow.
What is he saying here?
So he actually has a parachute with the Zcash logo, if you see.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so he's actually like he has
remember
a
this,
parachute
yeah.
for sale with the Zcash logo that he's
I don't know if I trust that parachute.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't go transparent.
It's pretty badass. I didn't even catch that part. So the guy actually went skydiving with the Zcash. But that's a pretty strong capitulation there at the bottom. Now, does anybody know this guy? Is he like he's not like a dev or something for Zcash, is he?
Well, he has a lot of followers. Crypto,
a lot of followers.
You're just a crypto enthusiast, or
search his account real quick. See if he ever mentions Monero. Give a search on his. If you could search his account, yeah.
But I gotta scroll a little bit too. Maybe privacy.
I don't think Twitter makes an easy way to query people's.
No, not
tweets.
really.
They don't let you data scrape anymore.
Oh, really? I used to be able to.
Really?
I feel like I used to be able to search people's tweets.
Well, you might be able to like type in his name on the search and then put in a word.
There used to be.
But ever since they messed with their APIs, it's like you can't really do much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you could search your tweets. I'm doing it right here. Let's see if anything pops. No results.
No, I didn't find anything.
I mean, that could just be Twitter's poor search results, but
yeah,
it's interesting that somebody who's been in Zcash for that long, abandoning it, has not mentioned Monero.
Yeah, but I wonder what made him sell it, because he literally took 90% plus loss.
Maybe he was just in it for money and not really.
Maybe.
Yeah, he could have just been a total, speculator, not interested in the tech at all or whatever.
Or Zcash has not been doing great in that regard.
Yeah. He also had a parachute, so I mean, he's a hardcore shiller.
We're here for you, Zcashers. When you're ready to move on to true digital cash, we are here for you.
Okay, now let's move on to Israel. As you guys know, it's an ongoing war. It's not something new. It's been going on for a long time, but the war, Israel, Gaza, it's devastating, but unexpectedly, or actually expectingly, because it's been done before, Israel freezes crypto accounts seeking Hamas donations, police say. So October 10th, Israel has frozen cryptocurrency accounts used to solicit donations for the Palestinian militant group Hamas on social media, police said on Tuesday. Hamas launched devastating attacks from Gaza into Israel on Saturday in one of the most serious escalations in the Israel-Palestinian conflict in years. I mean, of course, they're a terrorist group, as you may know, and but it may sound bad, but you should have the freedom. If you, for some reason, you want to donate to them, you should be able to do it, and you can do it with cash. Of course, it's nice if you wouldn't, but yeah, Israel can freeze your crypto accounts seeking Hamas donations. But the most important thing is that if they can freeze it in this instance, not only Israel but other countries as well, they can freeze it at any time. If they can do it once, they can do it always. So
can I mention that title so I can freeze crypto accounts?
I think what they're talking about is freezing like exchange accounts.
Okay, that
if you read it, the article, I think it's like Binance or something.
Yep.
You can play that video. Did you have that video I sent to? There's a video clip. So my take on all, I mean, what's we all knew this was going to happen, right? So here we go, guys. Wars are breaking out. People are being called terrorists, and they're now being alleged to have used the tool of cryptocurrency to help perpetrate their crimes. This is what they're going to, start to focus on. We always knew this was coming. They're going to the powers that be, the state, the government, will now focus on this use case of crypto as a way to regulate it and, perhaps ban it if needed. What's interesting about this is if you read the article, it references an article from April where it says Hamas has endorsed crypto as a fundraising method for years, but said in April it would stop receiving fundraising via the cryptocurrency Bitcoin, citing an increase in hostile activity against donors. So basically saying that Bitcoin was traceable, people were making donations using Bitcoin, and it was causing problems, and their donors were getting harassed or they were getting found out. So the suggestion here is that they moved on to things that are less traceable, right? They've moved on to things like Monero. And we all knew this was going to happen. Monero can be used for good. It can be used for evil. Governments are going to focus on the evil aspect and say, we need to get rid of tools like this because it funds terrorism and,
I think we need to get rid of the government because the government funds terrorism.
I think the government does a lot more damage than Monero ever can or will do, for sure. But unfortunately, the masses, the sheep, they just see these headlines and they see Monero bad, crypto bad, millions of dollars was used to fund terrorism. So that's what we're up against. So it's important, I think, for us to fight the propaganda from day one, right? We gotta be out there. We gotta be vigilant about it, talking about all the positive aspects of crypto, everything that it intends on doing and will do. It's going to take power away from the state structure. It's going to eventually create less wars, right? As we defund the state, defund the central banks. But all these things are a little are more difficult to kind of grasp and understand by the average Joe, right? The average Joe sees money was sent to terrorist group is now killing babies. It's because of this tool that they were able to do that. So it's a real uphill battle for us, but we got to be out there. We got to be vigilant. We got to be talking about all the positives about crypto. I mean, obviously we get it, but unfortunately, we are the minority here, guys. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I thought about something interesting while you are talking. So you're kind of actually donating to terrorism through taxes, because when you pay your taxes, it doesn't go to all benevolent things. It goes to the government, and the government, especially in the US, they're the ones that started a bunch of wars for monetary or financial gains. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you solve money, you solve a lot of these issues, because all these wars and Ukraine, Russia, China and Taiwan, now this, and Armenia and Azerbaijan, all these wars, they are because of money and power. But
all wars are bankers' wars.
For sure.
All wars are bankers' wars, but most of society doesn't understand that, nor they can't grasp that. But they will understand is when they show horrific pictures of terrorists doing horrible things and saying they're receiving funding because of these tools. So we saw with 9/11 and the Patriot Act, right? Overnight they were able to pass the Patriot Act, which took away rights for essentially citizens around the entire world in one felt swoop that we're still dealing with the ratchet effect. It never went back to what it was, never will. And so I think crypto is going to have that, unfortunately, is going to have that moment, whether it's this go around with what's going on now in Israel, or it's the next thing, you're going to see legislators move against crypto, which is really the central banks, the bankers behind them that are pulling the strings, that are using this as an excuse to try to kill this technology that's looking to kill off the central banks.
The U.S. is tied in with Israel. Like, if it's like, Monero is being used to fund terrorism against Israel, that's like a very swift, get rid of it kind of thing. I can see happening.
Yeah.
Actually, let me show you something that I found was really funny. So there's this website called Masterclass, and it's really cool. Like, it's actually really nice. And then let me see if I can see all classes. No, wait, because you're gonna have a laugh.
Oh, I've already had a laugh on this site before.
Mhm.
What was that?
I've already have a good laugh on this site before.
Oh yeah, okay. So they have classes, and
Yo, I could take the Hillary Clinton masterclass, dude. How
or
to
you can take the Bill
suicide people.
Clinton one or George W. Bush. Hillary will teach you the power of emails, followed by Bill Clinton. George Bush can teach you a bit of Afghanistan and Iraq.
Weapons of Mass Destruction by George W. Bush.
Yeah, I thought that was like really funny as I was scrolling through. Okay, so now let's move on. The last couple, actually, no, let me mention this and then we'll go into CBDCs, CBDC news. Monero.com is back on the Google Play Store. So if you have Android, Monerocom is back and you can use it. Now, CBDCs will improve tax collection. Argentine central banker, of course, CBDCs will improve tax collection. Juan Agustin Datelis Noguera publicly supported Sergio Massa in promoting a central bank digital currency as a remedy for the national economy. And then it's been mentioned in the official's opinion, the key feature of the CBDC is its traceability. By having traceability of operations with a digital currency, because it is not known who does them, but there is evidence that they were done, you brought on the tax base. This will allow you to raise more without having to raise taxes and even lower them. Okay, so that's nice because then, you can see what citizens are doing. It's gonna sound odd, but okay, so you see what citizens are doing with the money. You get the right amount of money. There's no tax evasion from the citizen school. But then we want to see what they do with our tax money as well. So transparency in terms of that, okay, maybe, sure. But then we also need transparency from them. And we need to see where every single cent from our taxes goes to. Is that gonna happen? I don't think so. I don't think so. So it's just going to be against it's going to be a system against the population where tax evasion is going to be less harder and harder to do. And yeah, so.
I mean, these Argentinians aren't going to, like, they're already pretty aware of their financial situation. There's no way they're going to, like, the masses are going to take part in that.
Well, I mean, just like in Nigeria, I mean, the ENA era, we talked about it in the previous episode, they had, and I think actually, I'm not sure if this is about Nigeria or, yeah, this one. Okay, so the ENA era, they used to have 0.5% overall usage. And then the government pulled some strings, forced the population, and now all of a sudden, a lot of people are forced to use the ENA era. So even if you do want it or not, I mean,
Going to make it the offer too good, right? Going to offer you like a ton of money or discounts or whatever.
Yeah, you get 20% off whatever. Or like the way it works in Eastern Europe, you just give the population flour and oil, and then I'll vote for you, and it literally happens.
Flour and oil, huh?
Yeah.
I actually interviewed this week a guy from Nigeria, Econ Bro. Recommend checking that out. He actually did a Kuno fundraiser. He's looking to raise funds to spread libertarianism throughout Nigeria. He's already been out there doing it. So I it doesn't come across as a scam at all to me, but fun. I should say that, right? Fund all these Kuno things at your own risk. Do your own research. That's why I'm interviewing these people too, to like kind of put them on stage, put them on the spot a little bit. You could suss them out and make a decision based on that. But I got all good vibes.
Yeah, it looked like that guy was doing super cool work.
Yeah. He's actually, he has video of him out there giving lectures, and he's trying to spread like the Austrian economics throughout Nigeria, and effectively he's trying to build up like a political party there. Like it sounds like a libertarian political party. But yeah, he had some. He didn't know much about the CBDC, but yeah, saying wasn't not really being adopted there. What I found interesting was he doesn't think cash will be eliminated there. Because it's how corruption is takes place in the country, right? They use cash. All the politicians use cash. They use cash primarily during the elections. They go out and they pay people to vote. So they need physical cash to go make these payments to voters to get them to vote. So he doesn't see there being incentive on any side of the political parties there to eliminate cash, which I thought was interesting, because everybody here is thinking, all right, they're going to implement the CBDC, they're going to eliminate cash, but he doesn't think there's the political will there to eliminate it, because they all want it. They all want cash for their corrupt purposes.
It's kind of the same in Romania as well. For example, rules don't apply to the ones that have status or are rich. I mean, the cops stop you, you pull up a couple hundreds, you hand it, that's it. They don't do anything to you. And and things that are much, much worse than that. So
yeah, he's saying it's common course. It's part of every election there, that you go out, you take cash, and you go pay people to go vote.
Oh my god,
you can do that without cash, and they all use cash over there. So I found that to be interesting.
But it's kind of like they give you cash, and then they're gonna run the country, and then they're going to devalue your currency even more. So yeah, but Nigeria has the most cryptocurrency aware population in the world. So 99% of Nigerians are more knowledgeable about Web3 than people in major economies like the UK, the United States, Japan, and Germany. So
that's crazy to me.
Very, very interesting. How will CBDCs be used for political oppression in your country? I mean, we kind of talked about this. CBDCs are poised to give politicians unprecedented power to track your data, restrict your movements, and control your life. How are they going to restrict your movements? You want to fly to this country? Well, you can, because you reached your carbon, your CO2 emission for this year. So, okay, you can't have the trip anymore. You can't buy that meat anymore. You can't buy those eggs anymore. You can't do this and that. So, yeah, by controlling money, they actually restrict your movement and your life as well. Or you can't drive anymore. I mean, you've already bought enough fuel for the month. So yeah. And then it talks about this specifically. Then we have another article. China opens industrial park for digital yuan CBDC development in Shenzhen. This one is actually very interesting. So the government is incentivizing new residents to come in this industrial park all together to develop payment solutions, smart contracts, hard wallets, and promotions for the digital yuan. So you have a bunch of people in one place focusing just on this, on the CBDC. And China made tremendous progress when it comes to CBDCs, to usage, to offline usage as well, which is very important. So if your phone dies, so you can still make payments with the CBDCs. So they made a lot of improvements, and they say, according to reports, the district government has announced 10 initiatives to boost the development of the digital yuan ecosystem that involve payment solutions, smart contracts, hard wallets, and digital yuan promotion.
Oh, wow. Incentives are being offered to residents that include up to 3 years free rent. Damn.
Was that? Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's.
Commercial banks can receive up to 20 million yuan, 2.7 million, for settling there, while startups are eligible for up to 50 million yuan, which is about $6.9 million. Total government support is set at 100 million yuan, which is like 13.7 million.
Carrot before the stick.
Jesus, can you imagine if you lived in New York and then they're like, all right, you got to do this and this and that, and then we'll give you 3 years of free rent in New York City.
This is the carrots are getting bigger before they bring out the stick.
In China, there's going to be zero resistance to the CBDC in China. They're already basically have, the negative results of what a CBDC can do in other forms, right? Everybody's there.
Totally.
It's all already completely surveilled. All their 98% of society is using some government-owned app or system for making
your face to scan for your payments. Yep.
Yeah.
And
so
of course, Beijing has the most security cameras per citizens in the entire world.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Just it's in their culture. They go along with the government. They trust the government. or
It's
they just,
kinda
they just know there's nothing they can do otherwise. You know, it's like,
which is very sad.
sad to see.
In China, it's kind of like they're already very much surveilled, but CBDCs will just make it easier for them to be surveilled. So they're like, all right, you're either way surveilling me, you're gonna make it easier, fine. You know, it's not like,
Right.
yeah, that's how it is, which is interesting.
If you're gonna take away all my rights, you might as well do it in the easiest way possible.
Make it convenient. Like, damn it, you know, you're already surveilling me. Like, make it convenient already. It's the same thing anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what's gonna cause a cultural shift there.
It's hard, especially so there were experiments done in China where they told one person to get lost, and in 5 minutes they found them because they have cameras with face recognition, and every single human that walks just has like a square that identifies them. So they tell them, okay, run away as far as you can and we'll find you. 5 minutes, the guy was found. So yeah, now let's discuss the last thing for this week's news section: how CBDCs and stablecoins can coexist together. E2 Kunainen argued against CBDCs as they are centralized by nature, of course, saying that certain dangers come with government control. A lot of dangers. So the recent Future Innovation Summit event held in Dubai, that sounds actually pretty cool. Cointelegraph moderated a panel titled Stablecoins, CBDCs, and Cross-Border Payments to explore if CBDCs and stablecoins can coexist and how this would be possible, which is very interesting. And then they talked about, there's a quote, and it says, let's say that they don't like some political rivals. They can, with one click, freeze the other party's assets. So what gives us any security that they won't use this, or if they are a smaller country? They're pressured by a bigger country to do so. And then also, I think that they will coexist, and probably in some years we'll see a transnational body that will take care of the CBDCs and the interoperability between them, and ensure that no government can pull the plug or do something that affects the interests of the people. I don't believe that. Last thing, according to executives, they would be the ones to determine which specific pain points exist and whether CBDCs or stablecoins would be the answer to that. The executive also believes that the two can coexist as long as stablecoins remain stable and decentralized. So, will they coexist? Can they coexist? And that's to see. But of course, in the equation that should exist is Monero, which is better than all of them, offers you privacy, and it's just really well designed. It's actually interesting because the first time when I was learning about Monero, it's like, okay, cool, it has privacy, but it's so much more than that, with dynamic block size and other specificities, which a lot of other cryptos don't have, or the telemission. So it has a lot of touches that make it stand out way more than its privacy, which is going to be way and beyond than what it is today with Seraphis and so on. So yeah, Monero is a powerhouse, and in a way, it is bad the way the world is heading with CBDCs and such, but it's just going to force people to wake up and look into things like Monero, and maybe the world is gonna be a better place then.
It will be it's here waiting for anyone. It's not going anywhere. Can't be stopped. Can't be stopped. It's the polar opposite of a CBDC. And so when people wake up and realize they don't want to be part of that, they'll be looking for another solution.
For sure.
Yeah, you want to share the video I sent in the Telegram real quick? It's related to the insane inflation.
I don't know why. There's one more article, but I couldn't open it because it's from New York Times, and then it just tells me to subscribe and pay.
Oh, yeah, if you do an archive.is, that might work, but...
Yeah, I think, why didn't I open this, actually?
I just sent it, like, 20 minutes ago.
Okay. Should I just play the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So it says 1.75 million for a house in Bend, Oregon. 2,600 square feet. Seriously, listen to this guy explain the local market and how crazy it is for the income in this area. What are we missing here? Why is it so expensive there? How are younger people ever expected to afford any homes? They're not. I mean, they've doubled in the last couple of years. They're already unaffordable, and now they're doubling even more. So let's see how a $1.75 million house looks like in Oregon.
At first glance, this house might look pretty normal, actually just like a pretty plain Jane regular house. But it is currently listed for $1.75 million.
Jesus.
It serves as just another example of the whole West Coast becoming just a playground for the ultra-rich. It blows my mind that someone would buy a place like this for almost $2 million. The place doesn't even have a yard. You can see up here, there's some little natural landscape, whatever, but you don't even have a yard.
Natural landscape.
Your house is your neighbor's driveway. If you wanted to buy a place like this, and you actually lived and worked in the city I'm from, you'd have to make like $450,000 a year. You know what? The average job around here pays about 50 grand, and the average household brings in about 75 grand. And all the new homes here are being built at a price point that is at least double to triple what the average family here could afford. And this problem only continues to get worse, as all the land that they open up for development goes to these developers who want to build these planned communities with these incredibly expensive homes. There's an open house in there right now. I would take you guys for a tour, but I've heard through the grapevine that all the realtors in town, they just really can't stand me.
They really can't stand me.
That's crazy. That house is about the same size as my parents' house, which they got for like $150K back in 2001, I think.
Oh, wow.
So that
Still
right
quite
there-
a lot, no? For that time.
Yeah, I mean it's a hard amount, but yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
And most places
Florida.
aren't quite that insane, but for whatever reason, that specific area is just like rapid inflation.
the whole
Insane.
point is for you to not own anything, to not own assets, to make them so expensive that you can't even afford them.
Renters
you-
market only, and even
Yeah.
then, you can't afford to rent anymore.
Yeah, even that. Even rent
All
is
these homes are owned by whatever, like BlackRock, or right. I mean, not all these, but it's a lot. A lot of these large investment firms are buying up properties like these as well and just renting things out.
It's insane when you look at stocks and you look at top 5 holders. It's always BlackRock.
BlackRock.
200 million shares of this, 200 million shares. I mean, they have trillions and trillions of dollars of assets. It's crazy how much money they have.
There has been talk of something that could perpetuate a real estate collapse being the amount of people that bought Airbnbs. I think that's an interesting theory. If you look at all the Airbnbs out there, and people kind of got over leveraged, overexposed. People went out,
Oh, yep.
bought a lot of these properties, took
Like,
out mortgages.
yeah, so much money coming in now that things are getting out of control, people are not spending as much or moving or going on vacations. And
Right. And if people stop renting out the Airbnbs, you're going to have a lot of people stuck with like these properties that they just can't pay the mortgage on. So there might be some relief there potentially, but otherwise it's hard to see where the relief is going to come because there's just such a shortage of supply. Nobody has anywhere to freaking live and buy a home. So supply demand, there's just not enough supply. And I don't know why I don't technically really understand why we're not seeing enough homes being now built because of that shortage, and why instead we're seeing homes like this being built.
see, they're doing the exact same thing near where I live. Instead of building a lot of houses, like there are some houses being built, they're building these tight-knit townhouses, right? Like these condos, like you've just got like a bunch of these, like, and they're just tearing down these entire areas just to build these. They're not building actual homes with like property. They're just building these little townhouse condos, which, I mean, some of them you might be able to buy, because I know like townhouses, sometimes you can buy, but it's like a lot of them will be rent only. And like, it's so much worse than people being able to buy a house like 30 years ago on a single income. Now you can't even afford to rent a lot of times on a single income.
Yep.
The New York Times article, you can't get it up. It was an interesting one.
Yeah, no, because
I got you. Give me.
Yeah, see if you get that up.
see, like you can, but then in like, okay, maybe.
Oh, is it working this time? Oh, there it is.
Oh, yeah.
Can
I will search for. Here's a little trick. Okay, if you go to either archive.org or archive.is. You put that URL in. Usually someone's already snapshotted it, and that's a way to view it free. Yep, so I'll send it to you in Telegram since I just pulled it up.
So I have to get Metasploit up, or get my console, do some work.
That's a good little trick. That's archive.is.
Oh,
Yep.
cool! Wow,
There you go. Yep.
Okay, that's actually really cool. So across U.S., Chinese Bitcoin mines draw national security scrutiny. Microsoft reported one site in Wyoming because of its proximity to a data center and nuclear missile base. Records show other cryptocurrency facilities have ties to the Chinese state. When a company with Chinese origins broke ground last year on a crypto mining operations in Cheyenne, Wyoming, a team at Microsoft that assesses national security threats sounded the alarm. Not only was the site next door to a Microsoft data center that supported the Pentagon, it was about a mile away from an Air Force base that controlled nuclear-armed intercontinental ballistic missiles. The location could allow the Chinese to pursue full-spectrum intelligence collection operations that the Microsoft team wrote in an August 2022 report to the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, a federal body that monitors threats posed by overseas investors. Microsoft warning did not go unheeded. And then they also have some pictures.
Yeah, it's a long article. Basically, it's talking about these large ASIC mining farms that are being built in areas around the country in the U.S., which we're all aware of, and some of them appear to be owned by the Chinese government. And so this is just as an example of just another attack surface for Bitcoin, right? We've talked about this before. ASIC mining farms are, I believe, are an attack surface for Bitcoin. Whether it's regulators coming in saying we need to, these things are using up too much fossil fuel, so we need to put regulations on them, or whether it's mandating that these mining farms be OFAC compliant, right? So they're a target. They're a target that can be approached by the government. And so here we're seeing politically it becoming a problem because they're concerned about who's owning these mining farms. So it's just another attack surface, right? So you might see regulators move in and try to pass laws, whatever, saying who can and can't own a Bitcoin mining farm. They're concerned that China could use these to essentially take out our grid, or could use them to as a database to spy on people. Whatever it is, doesn't really matter. It just shows that large ASIC mining farms can be approached by governments, by the state, and it's an attack surface for something like Bitcoin, as opposed to something like Monero, where theoretically we're never going to see large Monero mining farms owned by large corporations. The incentive just doesn't exist. So that's kind of what I get out of this.
The most you can see is a bunch of apartment complexes mining Monero in synchronicity, but
it's a problem, right? Monero is supposed to be, Bitcoin's supposed to be decentralized and unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a few companies that own all these mining farms, and all the equipment, all the hardware is essentially coming from the same company, these companies can be approached by the state. They can be pushed around. They can be regulated. That's what we're seeing here.
And to be fair, we still have a little bit of some of those challenges with Monero, like where sometimes the pools will, get close to that 40-50% mark, but people seem to back off pretty quickly. All that needs to be is like making pool better, incentivizing that, and then also potential issues with companies like Bitmain, who seems to be the only company that's making actual Monero miners. The incentives still aren't as good as with Bitcoin, because with Bitcoin it's a lot easier because you can do the ASICs and stuff, and there's more money around there. But it's still something to consider. It's
What do you
better,
think?
it's better, but not perfect.
Saying that we could start to see ASIC mining farms for Monero? No.
No, not ASIC, but I'm like, so Bitmain had their Monero miners, right? The Antminer X5.
Right.
And they put those ones away and they're selling those, but they made those a few years ago. So like, let's say they are working on another one, or they have one coming out next year. Who knows how much hash rate that'll take up, because a few years difference especially with RISC-V technology, because it's a lot newer, that could be quite a large difference. So I don't know, just speculation.
Yeah, speculation. But I mean, as far as I could, it doesn't seem like the incentive will ever exist.
No, and that's the thing. They're the only one doing that. That's
right.
doing that, and they're not right now. So the incentive is very just not there compared to with Bitcoin.
Yeah, the efficiency you're getting out of it is not enough to warrant building these large ASIC mining farms to compete. Just doesn't exist for you to invest all that money into building out a large center that would just mine Monero when the economies of scale just aren't there. Whereas with Bitcoin, they are.
Right. So that was it for this week's news section. Let me stop sharing this. Yeah, so that was the news section, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony. Yes, stick around if you can. It was a long news, but we don't have a special guest today, so thank you, man.
Thank you, guys. Have a good weekend. I have to go now.
All right.
Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
All right, price report up next.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get into that.
The Monerotopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Local Monero. Avoid using KYC exchanges. Buy and sell Monero directly for fiat, peer-to-peer.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, what's going on? How you doing,
buddy?
Good. We just got the solar eclipse here. Just the moon just started crossing over the sun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I got the glasses and everything.
No, really? How was it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just started, so it should reach at least here. It should reach it only gets 50%, but it'll get to its maximum fullness in maybe 40 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that.
Awesome. And so
go
ahead.
This thing, I'm not at my hometown, but the place I was born, it crosses directly overhead. Texas, basically. Yeah, just streaks through Texas.
And it's a ring of fire, right? It's good. You're just going to see a kind of a halo around the edges.
Yeah. So apparently, the difference is that sometimes the moon is slightly closer to the Earth, and sometimes it's a little bit farther away. So when it's closer, you get a full eclipse or a total eclipse, and then when it's farther away, you get the ring of fire, which is what we're gonna get right here or right now. But where I'm at in Mexico, it's not. We won't get the full thing.
Very cool, man.
What's crazy is my mom's birthday is right around the corner, and this thing is passing directly over our hometown. And then next year, right on my birthday, pretty close, the thing passes basically directly over our hometown again, which is a crazy coincidence. Yeah.
You got to go back for that one.
For sure. 100%.
You might disappear though. You might be the chosen one.
Maybe I'll just nail a price call or something. I'll call the next shitcoin to 100x or 1000x. I'll get all you guys on board, and then we'll rug pull into Monero.
All right, that's cool though. I like that.
Yeah. The eclipses. I saw one back in 2017. I went to Jackson Hole. And that was pretty cool. That was the first total eclipse I've ever seen, or at least that I remember. Maybe when I was 5 or something. I feel like we watched one.
Yeah, I have a friend who went out to Utah to watch it. A coworker.
Oh, cool.
Went to watch it. The Ring of Fire. Very cool.
So yeah, continuing, I guess on with the news a little bit. The war pig trade is in play. So believe it or not, probably easier to believe than not to believe. But 2 weeks ago, Congress started loading up on defense stocks. So I mean, that was kind of special. I remember hearing that and thinking, it ticked in my mind, but I was like, you hear stuff like that. I think I'm going to start paying a little bit more attention to those stories about what Congress is buying and is not buying. Because I think it actually all has to be reported. So anyways, they started loading up on defense stocks right as they sent the emergency signal test, quote unquote, broadcast. And then the whole, the whole war pig thing went down, and a whole bunch of people that
Conveniently
were
at the same time.
allegedly. Say again.
Conveniently, right around the same time.
Yeah, just so happened. And then a whole bunch of freedom people that, were supposedly supposed to talk about how the greatest money on earth is going to end all wars, are like supporting Israel. So not all of them. A lot of people are acting principled. So shout out to those guys that are, whether they're Bitcoiners, maximalists, crypto people, the people acting philosophically consistent, shout out to those guys. But there is kind of like a big group of people that were allegedly for freedom that are now cheering on what's going on over there. It's it's a terrible thing.
Yeah, yep, I've seen it.
So one thing that we did see is that stocks kind of bounced. Let's go to stocks here.
Are you trying to share your screen, Bawdy? I don't see anything.
Oh, am I not?
Yeah.
Interesting. I see it here on StreamYard. It's
I
like it
removed
looks
it
like.
and re-added it, but it's just blank.
Huh. Let me try again. This thing might crash. What I've been having to do. So I don't know. I did an update to Firefox, and then it just started crashing whenever I tried to share my charts. Let's see if it does that again. I don't think I've updated, so I don't see any reason why it wouldn't crash. But share screen. Chromium tab. No, I don't want to do that. All right, what about now?
Yep.
Oh, no, it crashed.
Yep.
Oh, it crashed. Oh, rip.
Yeah, crap. All right, I'm going to leave the studio here. I've got to relaunch my charts. This will take like just a minute. 30 seconds if I can do it quickly. Yeah, so okay, here we go. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the crypto versus stocks and the anti-correlation that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Man, now I've got two of them. Okay. What about now?
Yes.
Oh, yep, there we go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we talked about kind of this head and shoulders pattern for a while on the stock market that had developed, and I think it's still in play. So shoulder, head, shoulder, and then neckline. And then the breakdown there has basically come up to retest that. Effectively, this pump, in my mind, was the war pig trade. So, the more war broke out and Congress had bought defense stocks, and everyone's like, oh, more war means more bombs and more defense stocks. So I think that was likely a big driver of the stock market. Because people are now, it used to be like, oh, there would be war and then everyone would be uncertain, and uncertainty is it's like the kryptonite of markets. But now everyone's like, oh, well, if there's war, then that just means they're going to print more money, which means the stocks are going to go up, especially defense stocks. So I think that's kind of what happened here with this pump. So honestly, I'm still not convinced that things are going to come back here back to the all-time highs. I'm still basically on my general thesis of overall down-ish until the end of year. We don't see any major signals as of late that tell us that things are about to crash. So for example, the yield curve inversion on the bottom, and then all of the individual yields up top. There's nothing there that would suggest that we're going to crash anytime soon. Let's see, I've drawn a couple new lines on this chart. This is the NASDAQ. So you can see that we've kind of got this line right here. This is starting to look slightly like a bullish flag, right? So a bullish flag is when you go up and then you kind of consolidate and you go down and eventually you pump to the upside. So I think that could very much be in play with the strength that the stock market has shown for the past, let's just say 5 months, 6 months. I was kind of thinking that we might actually end up down here in this range on the NASDAQ, but I think it could actually be very possible that we just kind of do this and then that stocks go to the upside somewhere in December or maybe early 2024. That would kind of be what this pattern is starting to suggest. It's quite possible that we could meet the downside target, which would be it would be somewhere around here. Like that's possible. But right now, this channel is so strong. This big channel right here is so strong that I would expect, really, that's kind of like where you would target for stocks to remain. Now, if they want to be irresponsible and create inflation, well, then they'll just push stocks and they'll push it up like that. So, who knows what they're going to do? It seems like they love their inflation. Let's see. Gold gave us a big green dildo yesterday. Thing just pumped to the upside. And when we say big green dildo for gold, 3% is a pretty significant move. So basically, gold found support where we were talking about last week, right around here. Said, hey, this might be, if you were trying to get into a gold position, you would buy maybe 20 or 30% of your allocation right here, being responsible. That's really like because again, you should be reallocating positions occasionally. You really shouldn't be trading. And I know that a lot of people in Monero, especially in Monero, aren't traders at all, and they really just don't care about what the price is doing, and that's great. I also would say that what we're doing is inherently monetary, and so you ignore the monetary landscape at your own peril. Like if you're a hodler and you're a DCA, that's fine. You believe in the project fundamentals, that's totally fine. I totally understand that. Yet at the same time, I feel like looking at what's happening in the markets helps you to understand what's happening in the world in certain kinds of ways. For example, noting the fact that 2 weeks ago, noting the fact that Congress was loading up on defense stocks, right? That's a signal that you can use for both trading, but it's also a signal to understand what's happening in the world. So anyways, yeah, gold is performing pretty good right here. I'm still not totally convinced that this thing is ready to break out now, but maybe, right? The way that they treat gold, like in a fundamental sense, the way they treat gold, I wouldn't be surprised, again, to watch this thing come back down to this lower line, but maybe it doesn't. The fact that it got such a strong bounce off of that support, that could be an indication that gold is really wanting to take off here soon. Again, it's a long-term play. It's a value storage kind of thing with the potential that it could get revaluated much higher at some point in the short to medium term, maybe to the long term, right? Hopefully within the next year or so. That would be kind of my guess. Let's take a look at the global liquidity situation. The U.S. liquidity is in green. Global liquidity is in white. Not much has changed with global liquidity. It's kind of going down. One thing that I noticed here is that you'll notice that U.S. liquidity. So again, we're talking about the Federal Reserve balance sheet. We're talking about M2 money supply and the reverse repos. The reverse repos kind of acting inversely, where as money goes into the reverse repos, that's liquidity coming out of the system. And as money leaves reverse repos, that's liquidity going somewhere. So this chart down here, you'll see that reverse repo continues to drop. It's now down to $1 trillion. It used to be up above 2 trillion. So what I'm seeing here is like a bit of divergence on the action. So in green, the US liquidity situation is kind of making higher highs, but it's divergent from the action on stocks, right? Stocks are making lower highs right now. So sometimes we talk about RSI. I look at Z-scores, but it's a very similar kind of chart. Right now, I wonder if something like this isn't in play right here, where liquidity is making higher highs. Like there's more liquidity, but they can't quite get stocks to perform, right? They can't quite get them to higher highs. So I do wonder if that's a signal, again, of a potential downside. So just kind of a note, to keep in your mind there. Dollar index, we talked about last week. I said I would be surprised if the dollar just, cratered below this area right here, because we've got the rising resistance line, and we've got this kind of horizontal area of significance, which was that spot right there. So yeah, the dollar has kind of made a little bit of a rebound here, bounced back up. It's kind of above this trend line. This trend line right here is a good example of why trend lines are bullshit. You got to be careful with them. And fake outs happen all the time. So they're, in a lot of ways, they're visual references. And then you look for confluence of visual references, which is kind of something we did down here. And like earlier this, maybe a few months ago, right, when the dollar was kind of like testing this area right here, that was a time that a line that some pleb lines actually did make sense. And it was like they were important and significant. And then, we saw the continuation of that run. So I think that the dollar index is probably, it could continue going up, but I wouldn't expect like a massive move up in the dollar right here. It should be finding significant resistance somewhere with like basically where we are right now, 106, 108, 109. I'd be surprised if it got all the way to 110. Let's see, I just turned on the wave magic. So again, you can see the upper standard deviation bands here. These are slightly longer term. So this is going to be limiting, right? These blue bands here, along with the these very, very long-term pleb lines, trend lines from, if we go to like the monthly, you'll see why these lines are drawn this way. Oh, it takes a while. Let me clear the wave magic. There we go. Yeah, so these lines are drawn that way. You can see it's like basically just a big channel that's been happening for 15 years now. So at the moment, you know, if you're a Forex trader, this thing is going to probably not do anything crazy to the upside, but it could at some point later. I wouldn't expect this thing to get back up here, but maybe, like, that's a little bit too far to say with any certainty. Let's see, we looked at that. We looked at stocks. Maybe we could take a look at the ratio. Yeah, so the NASDAQ to S&P ratio still looks bullish. This thing right here, this chart right here, the NASDAQ to S&P ratio is an indication that maybe stocks are not going to take any big dip. Maybe the direction is to kind of meander on down in a bullish flag scenario where it's like, okay, you're making lower lows and you're making lower highs, but that bull flag is going to break to the upside eventually. That would, like, so that hypothetical scenario would be corroborated by this chart right here. Because this looks bullish. Like, you've got these upsloping blue bands. You're now starting to ride above these very long-term upper standard deviations, and they're already starting to curl to the upside. So if this thing kind of rides those bands and then starts moving up, you know, it might be close to time to start abandoning my my down until the end of your thesis. So it's always important to always question your thesis when you're a trader. Like, you can't let ego get in the way. You can't get stuck into a trade. You've just always got to be looking for the counter reason why you could be wrong. And that's not to say that you should, like, allow yourself to get captured by analysis paralysis, but you definitely need to always be considering the counter position. And that's probably true, like, in general in life. And that's actually something that learning markets has taught me, is to, like, be okay with it, with abandoning a position and being like, no, I was wrong, you know, and to not, like, feel, you know, not let your ego get in the way of being able to do that. It does help you to see things more clearly, and it does help you to, like, adapt, you know, to the real world as things change. Okay, so now we're looking at the inflation, the alleged inflation rates. The CPI is in white. The core inflation is in orange, and the core inflation is the one that we care the most about for the most part. CPI, we got these numbers last week, was flat, and then core continues to drop. Like, this is a good thing. This is definitely a good sign for the economy. You can see that this line right here, this horizontal area of significance, right around 4% inflation. The last time that we were there was like the early 90s, the late 80s. And then for, like, basically for all of the 90s and the aughts, and, like, for the last 30 years almost, it's the core inflation has been around 2%, around that target that the Fed has allegedly targets. So we're getting close there. This is good that it keeps coming down. If you're, you know, if you want those gains, if you want the markets to go up, getting core inflation lower is good. It means that they can do the intervention that will cause our bags to pump. I know that's, I feel dirty saying that, so I apologize for being philosophically inconsistent right there. Okay, let's go to Monero. Let's talk about Monero, because
you're addicted, man. You're addicted to that fiat. Give me more. Right. Print it.
Can't wait to dump all my crypto for more of my dirty fiat. Buy some champagne, maybe a casa in the hills.
There you go.
Changing topics quickly and ashamedly. We've got Monero Bitcoin. So we finally broke to the upside on this sort of, like, downsloping line here. This is good. Like, we like this, but at the same time, like, we're still horizontally challenged over here. We're not actually breaking through these horizontal lines here. Now, maybe probably that could happen, right? I mean, to me, in a longer term, this is a bullish chart. At a minimum, it's at least a neutral chart, right? Monero is holding its price against Bitcoin on very long time frames. We're slightly below. Let's see. So, like, right here, you know, kind of the launch price, bear market last time. Like, we're slightly below that area right there. Okay, no big deal. I would, you know, I mean, Monero is fundamentally used, so I think there's a good chance that it continues doing well against Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is getting a little bit of a bump right now from BitVM, where they can. So someone released a paper where they found a way that they can do Turing completeness for the most part on Bitcoin. It's a bit convoluted. They've got a lot of extra steps. That just sounds like a virtual machine with extra steps. They've got like a lot of research to do still. They've got a lot of implementation to do. And it's an optimistic system. All right. So in fact, maybe we should just like address this completely here. So someone released a paper where you don't have to actually do a soft fork or add a new opcode to Bitcoin to be able to do Turing completeness. It sounds a lot like a rollup to me, in kind of like the way that it could be implemented. The important thing is that it's an optimistic system. And when we say optimistic, it means that you basically trust that the person posting the hash or the proof on chain has told the truth. And if they haven't told the truth, then you have the opportunity to challenge that if there's enough block space, within the time lock period. That could be challenged, right? So Lightning Network is an optimistic system. There are rollups on Ethereum that are called optimistic rollups, specifically because you just basically trust optimistically that the person posting the proofs is telling the truth. And if they're not, someone will come along and be like, you hope optimistically that someone will come along and be like, hey, by the way, that was a bad proof. Here's the real proof. And then, you make some kind of adjustment to people's balances or something like that. This is in contradistinction to where you can't actually get a transaction on chain unless like it's proven cryptographically, which is they call those validity rollups or ZK rollups or ZK snark rollup constructions. You can't actually post the transaction unless it's like legitimately true. It's like a regular crypto transaction, right? You don't optimistically post a crypto transaction, a regular on-chain transaction and be like, well, someone proved me wrong. It's like you couldn't do it unless the cryptographic proof was correct. So anyways, this BitVM thing, they can do Turing completeness. They can do things like oracles. It's really a big question mark on how well they can do it. There's also CTV, which seems to be pretty powerful. I was looking into it this past week, and it seems very, very powerful. Maybe that combined with BitVM can give Bitcoin some scaling options. I'm still not convinced that anything's going to happen soon. But nonetheless, I think Bitcoin got a big bump here. Maybe not a big bump, but a little bump from kind of these news, right? These like CTV is coming, maybe, probably, and then BitVM. And so they're all like all the maxis that said how terrible all of these contracts were and how dangerous everything was are now celebrating that they can also do the same thing in a very convoluted, more difficult kind of way. Another thing to think about Turing completeness on Bitcoin in this way, think about all the Ethereum contracts that have just crashed and burned, like even contracts and projects that were trying to be honest, that were maybe quote unquote good projects, but they had like some critical failures, some like small thing that they overlooked. And this is on a chain that's specifically designed with a coding platform to do Turing completeness. Like that, it was designed from the ground up on layer one to do Turing completeness. And they had these you've had massive failures over the years. And that's just kind of like, it's kind of like the price of engineering, right? You build something, it crashes, it gets destroyed, whatever, and then you try to build back better. So I think to myself, okay, BitVM is a more convoluted way of trying to do these Turing complete smart contracts, and you're sort of like optimistically pegging back to chain. You're not even like verifying in a hardcore way like Ethereum does on layer one. How many catastrophic failures are they going to have in the attempt at trying to get smart contracts like this on Bitcoin? I wonder that. So anyways, that's kind of like my general feel on what's happening there. There's a lot of promise. It's kind of like Lightning Network 6 years ago. There's a lot of promise. It'll probably work. It'll probably like things will be developed there, but how much will it really be practical? How much will it really be adopted? It's hard to say. My guess is it's going to be, another 5 or 6 years. It'll be 2030 and they'll be like, yeah, BitVM is, it's right around the corner, hashtag 18 months. But that's my speculation. We don't really know. We'll have to wait and see. So right here, this is the Bitcoin dominance chart. It's kind of taken a little bounce here, not a huge bounce, but when we talk about like 3% move on the Bitcoin dominance chart, that's actually a pretty big move. Like in terms of market cap, that is a pretty big move. And you can see it here with
that was from the Bitcoin VM.
I think it's kind of the combination of the excitement starting to happen in Bitcoin with CTV, drive chains, even though no one wants drive chains, it's a possibility. And then BitVM. Yeah, it's like people saying, oh, look, we can do this stuff. We can scale. Here's the promise. Because we were starting to, in my mind, like from my anecdotal experience on the Twitters, it did look to me like Bitcoiners were starting to realize that Lightning Network kind of did have these significant challenges, and it's not moving as fast as they thought it would, and it's not being adopted like they thought it would, and everyone is using it custodially, apart from Phoenix, where you just like totally pwn your privacy. So I do think like intuitively that a lot of Bitcoiners and maximalists were kind of like, yeah, we need something else. I think that it's likely that bump recently in the Bitcoin dominance could have been related to that. I mean, that's speculative, right? I'm like, it's like when you watch the news and they're like, stocks are up today on the news of government bailout for, I don't know, for the airliners or something like that. Like they insert the latest news as the reason for the stocks going up, and there could be like a false correlation fallacy there. But I mean, there is like a significant resurgence of optimism, I think, that I've seen on Bitcoin. Okay. We'll see. Like this chart does look slightly bullish. Like I'm not going to lie, the Bitcoin dominance chart looks pretty good right here.
That could also just do with the market in general going down, right? And people moving into Bitcoin as like the last resort type thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that combined with the fact that FTX is not here to save shitcoins ultimately, because the whole bear market, we saw Bitcoin dominance either flat or down. Like occasionally with these like spikes, but the whole bear market was Bitcoin dominance having problems. But as soon as FTX collapsed, we saw the resurgence of Bitcoin dominance. So I think that's probably the larger factor. But yeah, things haven't really gone down too much, right? Like, they've gone down some. We've kind of been waiting for one direction or another to happen, and nothing has really happened. Sorry for all the dirty lines here. Like, I know this chart looks quite dirty. But we're still like, it's kind of like, okay, we hit the bottom, things came up to the top. Everyone was optimistic that we could come up to the upside and make 40, 50,000. And right now things kind of broke down from this rising wedge, but despite breaking down from a rising wedge, like we haven't actually seen like a real hardcore breakdown, to the downside. So, we've got this is the GBTC premium on the bottom currently at minus 16%. This thing is probably going to continue closing back to zero. I think the presumption is that BlackRock is going to get their ETF, which means that Grayscale is also probably going to get their ETF, which means that this thing will close to zero. Let's see. Let's take a look real quick at the Monero divergences. So all week long, basically, maybe not all week long, but for the last 3 days, looks like. Monero prices have been divergently down on Binance, Polo, Finex, and Qcoin as related to Kraken, which is interesting because we actually saw Bitcoin, we saw Monero moving to the upside versus Bitcoin right here. So another thing to look at is this big head and shoulders that we've been talking about like for months now. Is right, that green candle there is nice. We actually broke through this very long-term downsloping resistance line. I think this is very good sign. This is exactly what we want to see, right? We've got the shoulder head and kind of a very large shoulder right here. This thing coming to the upside, if this continues, like if we get another week like this, to me, it's like the chart pattern is very clear, and it's worth a bet. It's worth putting money into Monero as the chance that it could be correct. And again, it's like it's tea leaves, it's probabilities. It doesn't have to play out, but
technically, if it did play out, where does that take you? Like, where would a chartist say that would take you to, based on the head and shoulder?
On the head and shoulder alone, so this line right here, what you do is you measure from the neckline to the head, and then you just pull that over here. So that would put Monero at 1%, right about 1% dominance for the crypto market cap. Which also kind of lines up, if you'll notice, with the very long-term upper standard deviation bands, right? So like this area right here is kind of where you would expect if Monero pumped along this charting pattern, which would put it about 3.5 to 4x higher than its current price. Like everything else being equal, like if crypto just treaded water, stayed where it is, and Monero pumped, that would put Monero, like 3 to 4 times higher in price, which would be currently 152. So that would be like $600. That would be sweet. Could start using Travala.
Traveling the world.
I never sell my Monero. The only time I sell my Monero is when I need to make some kind of like crypto payment, and I'm like, no, you don't get to see my my stablecoin address or whatever. Actually, I played a nice little chain analysis on. I made a payment in stablecoin, and they're like, "Here, send it to this address." So I looked it up on chain analysis or on a block explorer, of course, and exported the CSV, and I was like, "Oh, looks like you guys had X million dollars flow through that address in the last 90 days." So like, just in case, you care about that kind of thing.
And
I
what
also
was the
have Monero.
response?
They haven't responded to me yet. It was like late, maybe not late, but like at the close of business yesterday. So I don't think they've seen it yet. But they'll probably come back and be like, "No, we're regulated and we can't." So no. Like, all right, well, if you ever want to do some freedom, hit me up for Monero. I'll pay you guys in Monero.
Monero transaction count is looking pretty solid. I just feel like it's a slow climb up.
Looks like we've ticked up. Yeah, we're kind of above the 20,000 mark, and we've been there since what would that be? Like the beginning of the month, September 25th, 24th. Yeah, so we've kind of been above 20,000. It's not massive, but we haven't had like this kind of consistent higher than 20,000 transaction count for quite a while. Let's go to really since I guess since May. What is this date for? Yeah, April, May. Yeah, I mean, it's optimistic,
especially given the bear market, right? It just feels like people are ignoring and actually using. There's some base usage that's happening in Monero. I know I use it every day.
I mean, same. Even though it hurts, a little more because we're in a bear market.
Yeah.
I still use it because there's so much I can use it for, and I like using it.
We run all our businesses with Monero, the people we pay and everything.
And if I want to make up for the amount I'm spending now in the bear market for Monero, I can just buy more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll look back and be like, wow, I spent quite a bit on that in retrospect, given what Monero's worth today. But I don't know. I've become numb to that. Just treat it like it's just try to live off of it.
Comfortably numb.
Exactly.
So there's maybe like one or two more things I would love to present to everyone today.
Go for it.
We're looking at here is the Bitcoin CME price, and on the bottom, this is a correlation analysis. It's a rolling 3-week correlation analysis to the NASDAQ. The reason that we look at the CME Bitcoin versus the NASDAQ is that they're always open at the same time. If you try and look at the Bitcoin price relative to the NASDAQ, Bitcoin has weekends. Bitcoin never has weekends off, and the NASDAQ does. So what I do is we look at this on the CME because the CME has the same hours basically. At least maybe not the NASDAQ, but the NASDAQ futures, which is NQ1I, or sorry, NQ1 XCLAM. Anyways, okay, so the bottom here is a correlation analysis running 3 weeks. And you'll notice that for basically the whole bear market, there was heavy correlation. So 0 is no correlation. 1 at the top here is positive correlation, and -1 is negative correlation. So yeah, you'll notice that generally speaking, for most of the bull market, we had positive correlation. Bitcoin had positive correlation to stocks, to the NASDAQ. And like for the entire bear market, it was like heavy correlation. And we kind of talked about this a little bit before, where it's like stocks will go up and Bitcoin won't, crypto won't, stocks will go down, and then somehow Bitcoin is doing well. You can see this right here on the bottom because you're oscillating around the 0 point. What this means is no correlation, right? That's what this chart would suggest, is that ever since about May, there's been no correlation between Bitcoin and stocks. They're like their daily movements basically, or their weekly movements. So I just thought that was, it's always good. We've talked about that before. We said, hey, there seems to be like some very light anti-correlation sometimes, and so it's good to be able to put like a metric on that, a way to look at that and say, okay, let's see how clear this correlation or anti-correlation or no correlation, right? Like how clear is that? So yeah, I mean, kind of oscillating between correlated, not correlated, but I mean, crypto just hasn't moved very much, right? Like our range for the past 2 months is basically 13%. Maybe I did that measurement slightly wrong. 15%. So yeah, there's that. And then the last thing we'll look at is Bitcoin relative to stocks. So just so we can kind of tie that up there about how things look, how Bitcoin is performing relative to the stock market. So basically you just take Bitcoin, you divide it by the NASDAQ, and and you understand without looking at dollars, right? Without looking at fiat, you understand how they're performing relative to each other. So yeah, I mean, overall, it's just kind of been sideways chop. Let's clear the wave magic. That's not too important here. In fact, what we'll do is look at the weekly. We haven't looked at this chart in quite a while. Yeah, so Bitcoin obviously peaked quite high here in the bull market relative to NASDAQ. This was the peak from 2017, and you'll notice that relative to stocks, since that peak in 2017, like Bitcoin is basically just performing about the same as stocks overall, right? With a lot of volatility, right? Significantly more volatility. So I just thought that was maybe useful to point out. Currently, so we're back here on the daily. Currently, I mean, just kind of like chopping sideways. I would expect it to basically continue doing this. Maybe there's some light positive pressure here, or maybe you could break down this line. But overall, I would effectively expect to stay inside this range. So it's, you know, that's probably not what the Moon Boys want to hear, you know, because the Moon Boys say that, you know, Bitcoin is the thing to beat inflation. And it's like, well, a lot of things beat inflation. All the finance bros have known for like 3 decades that you got to beat inflation, that you don't save in fiat. And so it's the question is, well, which asset is going to go up today or tomorrow? But, you know, I mean, crypto is a reasonable play, right? Like the fundamental promise of a digital bearer asset is a big deal. And no matter what any no coiner wants to say, it's a real thing and it's minimally viable for that. Crypto as a whole is minimally viable for that. I mean, Monero is the best censorship resistant digital bearer asset that exists. Bitcoin is, you know, it's pretty good. It's like minimally viable, marginally viable. But I mean, fundamentally, it's a good play. Like buy it, hold it, use it, you know, save with it, spend with it, and, you know, pray to the crypto gods to pump our bags. Amen.
Nice. We do have Red132 asking about ETH BTC. Did you go over ETH BTC? Yeah.
We kind of like slightly glanced over it. Yeah. So we had this descending wedge, and it's kind of broken down that wedge. So I don't entirely trust that this breakdown is like, I don't necessarily think that the next move is down. We see sometimes we will often see breakdowns only to come back to the other side, which is kind of something we saw with the dollar index that we talked about earlier, where like gold. Let's go to gold. So just to show you an example of this really quick, gold had kind of this descending wedge, which it broke down and then immediately came back to the upside. So it's totally possible that this thing does something similar. Maybe we can pull the wave magic up. I wouldn't expect ETH to make any big breakouts right here. I don't see any reason for it to pump massively at the moment. But I do think that in a bull market, in the next, you know, the next very broad up movement of all markets, I think that ETH is very likely to outperform Bitcoin yet again. There's just so much, excuse me, there's so much being developed on it. There's so much like useful stuff, useful tools. And, you know, the maximalists are probably kind of right that it's, you know, there's a lot of like bankers involved with ETH. There's a lot of like institutions involved with this thing. It's useful for them. They can, like, the promise is there that they could develop stuff. I don't think that any of these institutions are really thinking about Bitcoin as like their Turing complete platform that they can use to, you know, do all kinds of like crazy financial magic. One thing I would say here on the standard deviation bands, the lower standard deviation bands have now started to curl under. They're kind of messy because you've got all of the short-term bands overlaid with the long-term bands, but even the long-term bands, I don't know if you can see that very well. Make sure to switch to 1080p, but even the long-term bands are starting to move to the downside. This is like, from a wave magic standpoint, this is not good action. At best, you would hope that it would come back up here. It needs to recover, like it definitely needs to recover here, or else, like, I mean, from a wave, again, speaking solely from the wave magic standpoint, you would say this thing needs to recover soon because these are curling under. And if price continues to languish down here, then you very well could see a big drop to the downside. And again, maybe this is because there's the promise of Turing completeness on Bitcoin now. That's a possibility. So, yeah, I mean, it's uncertain. Like I really don't know what to make of the markets right now. There's a lot of signals kind of saying different things. The dollar index really pumped hard. over the last month, 2 months, and we didn't see stock markets drop by that much. Like stocks were surprisingly resilient. Crypto has been surprisingly resilient, even in the face of like some bad chart patterns. So, I mean, and then we got the war going on. So now there's like even more reason to print. I mean, the government shutdown looms, which is, the whole war was convenient for that as well, right? Now they're probably going to figure out how to avert the terrible government shutdown that was looming, which basically just means they're going to print more money, right?
So corrupt.
So, yeah. But
all right, buddy.
Yeah. That's all I got for you today.
Thank you so much. Did the Ring of Fire come through yet?
Oh, I don't know. I got to check it out. Like it should be.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not going to see the ring here. It's, we're only 50% coverage, but I think it's like right now. Like if you're in San Antonio or I think Corpus Christi, Utah, it's probably happening like right now. So
very cool. Very cool.
All right, I'm going to go check that out.
All right, buddy. Cheers.
Thanks, buddy.
Later.
Thank you. All righty. We got Comrade. Let's run the dev
let's
report.
do the dev report.
And now for the Monero development segment.
Hey, what's up?
Comrade, how's it going, man?
I'm good. I could make it, as you see.
All right. Thanks for doing it, as always.
Well,
yeah, give it a go. I guess you're going to talk about the upgrade.
the Monero OS now, and maybe next week about the upgrades for the business and maybe subscription wallets.
Okay.
So there's not really much to say about the Monero OS as it's basically an ARch based OS, and it's live, so you can run it through a pen drive too, like for example NiceHash or HiveOS, and you don't need to take up all the space from your SSDs and the HDDs. It's inspired by NiceHash as written, and is based on Arch, so it's neither a Debian or RPM based system. The way you install it is you can either use Bawdyanarchist Etcher or you can use DD by 1 second. Let me get my USB key. Got it. So basically, you can do it this way. Like you check the USB, which USB you have. So for me, I think this one's the one. Yes. So it's an 8 gig USB, and the way I install it is DD. The EF input file should be the ISO that you downloaded from the releases tab. For me, I personally didn't download the ISO, so I'm just gonna use a random one that I have. Proxmox. The output file should be the drive that you're installing to. So in my case, SDC /dev/SDC, and you should generally use block size of 32 megabytes. And if you want to see the status of the installation to your USB key, you could write status equals progress. And that way, 1 second, I need to use sudo because it's a root command. So that way, it starts installing the OS to your...
Are you just using the Proxmox ISO as an example?
Yes. I had that on hand because I have really little space on my drives. I need to buy a 1 terabyte one. So when it finishes, you can just write sync in the terminal, and it syncs up the USB key and then you can pull it out. The other way is as said, you can use Bawdyanarchist Etcher. You can download it from their website. I think that's bawdyanarchist.io. And you can just open it, click on Flash from File, click the ISO that you downloaded from the Releases tab from this GitHub. 1 second.
And so, just to explain, so why would people go ahead and use this versus?
So basically, if you have lots of mining systems or just one that you don't want to really mess with, then you can just install it like a mining OS, and you can just set it up as written here. 1 second, installation, and preferably you would use P2Pool. So you just click on this and you download the config.json from here that you have to put in the COWMOS partition that it creates, the ISO, and you would put the config.json in there that has this config, and you would put the P2Pool underline config.json there with your Monero address, a Monero node, maybe the XMR VS Beast one, or your own node, preferably.
So it's easier to mine with P2Pool than using XMR rig?
No, so P2Pool is using XMR. So this is the XMR config, and this is the P2Pool config. It downloads the P2Pool node for you, starts it with this config that you have. You just enter the RPC, ZMQ port, and your node, and of course your XMR address. And it started for you when you reboot your computer once it's bootable. And it uses the XMR config that you have here to connect to the P2Pool node, which will mine for you on the P2Pool.
Okay. Tux, you got any comments here? I'm just trying to understand what the development is here versus, I guess, using what previously existed.
Well,
So,
sorry, go ahead.
So basically, you'd only have to edit 2 files and download an ISO that you flash the USB drive, instead of having to set up multiple computers with their own OS, with their own XMR rig, P2Pool node, etc. You just have one USB key, which you can either boot live, or you can install it to several computer SSDs. So basically, if you have multiple computers, this is so much easier, in my opinion.
Okay.
And
Tux, any comments there?
I think it's kind of cool. It's like easy if you want to swap the systems fast, you can just take the USB out, put a different one. And it's if you like have a dedicated system just for Monero mining, because like a lot of people do, because they want to use all the cores on their processor, then it makes it easy and convenient to set that up.
And how is it different from NiceHash? Doesn't NiceHash kind of do that already, or no?
NiceHash, I think NiceHash only enables you to use their own pool, like NiceHash OS.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's based on Arch, so it really just has the basic Linux things in it, not like Ubuntu, which you have multiple bloatware on, because it's made
easy, optimized setup.
Yes.
Mining.
Yes.
Okay. Very cool.
And,
all right.
Which I just said. And with Windows, you would only use Bawdyanarchist and basically the same setup, but you need to create an NTFS partition for it to function properly, which can do by opening the hard disk partitions utility. It gives safe cause of buying another. Yes.
Explain that. Yes, my Mighty Pumpkin saying it's
No, yes. So basically, you could just drive a USB key of maybe 8 or 16 gigs, rather than buying a whole SSD of maybe 128 or 256 gigs. Like a USB key, I don't know, in the US, in Hungary, it costs like $10 nowadays.
For the regular Joe Monero guy who's maybe not super technical, what do you suggest these days for somebody who wants to start mining?
So if someone wants to start mining Monero by using their own CPU, like their own desktop, and not a separate PC, then I'd probably suggest using Goopux. But if you are into it by buying a separate computer for mining and using your desktop for desktop things, then I probably use this OS. It's real straightforward.
Tux, you got any comments there? Like for the noob that wants to just mine on their computer, simplest way. They want to mine, maybe P2 pool.
I mean, I think he had the best options there. Like Goopux is probably it's probably the way to go, to be honest.
All right. Have we done anything on Goopux itself? I don't know if you ever had a thing.
No, maybe I could do it one of the weeks.
And that's just like a GUI for mining, right? Makes it like super...
Basically, it downloads the XMR, the P2 pool node for you, and you can just click maybe 6 buttons and you're mining already.
It's got a lot more options to make the mining more optimized for your
system
compared to Monero GUI. So it's kind of got a better miner, but
and it's easy to get P2 pool up and running with it, right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, man. Stick around if you can. I guess we could try to do viewers on stage. Even I see Alaska Anon turn his camera on.
Just to mention, this OS was made by Arkal. I don't know how he wants to be pronounced. And of course, there's the current XR projects to look out for.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Which are the Monero signer, which I thought has been abandoned, but no, they came up with some updates on it. They featured how it would look. 1 second, let me find that post. So, if I don't exit it out, and this is how it will look. It's basically a seed signer, but with the Monero signer firmware. And here's their website. Coming soon. Well, developing a full firmware and OS for such a little device is a bit complicated, but they are doing their best.
That's cool. Is that the one Monerotime is doing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
I don't think we ever had him on, right? I think he was a little apprehensive because of language barriers.
Yeah, I think he's French.
Yeah, but maybe we can get him to come on. So you're saying these are some projects to keep an eye on that have been making progress?
Yes, and of course the subscription and business wallet, which I was doing with Luke, but I don't have much time nowadays, sadly. He is doing the business wallet currently, making lots of updates for it. So you see, 2 days ago, 3, basically he made a separate GUI, just like this, but we will update to a more modern GUI soon, if we are able to.
Very cool. Yeah, maybe we get Luke to come on. I know he's busy.
Cool to check that out at some point, because I think we had you show the subscription wallet a while back, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but now the business wallet is a new thing.
That's
an exciting project, the business wallet. I like what he's trying to solve there.
I'll ask him if he wants to come on, because I have direct contact with him.
All right.
And here are the Monero stats for the moment of writing. Monero transactions was, I do these 3 dates because. So we have a bit of analyzation here. This is the 30th, 7th, and the 13th, because we currently don't have the data for 2 days, of course.
Oh, okay. So you're showing from last episode to okay.
Yes.
That's cool.
To the most recent on the 13th. Well,
Hey, look, over 20,000.
We are going here, yeah. And as you can see, we will hit 3 million block height to the next Monerotopia episode.
Oh, we should do a
Oh,
3
shit.
million block height celebration episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Then the node count. Do we have an accurate way of determining node count? What are you using for that?
To be honest, I don't really know if we have a 100% accurate one, but there is Monero.fail/map maps. No, maps, not maps, not just map. And here it would show it just like Bawdy did, but I don't know why it doesn't. Oh, it's still loading. Oh, oops! Do you hear me?
Yeah. Do we know? Do we have any insight into how accurate node counts are?
I think this is the most accurate that we can find currently.
Mighty Pumpkin's asking about Anon Narrow project. Which one was that again? I'm actually forgetting.
That's the other
It's the
hardware.
offline wallet, right?
Yeah, that would be the offline, maybe phone or hardware wallet if you can do it yourself.
Right. It's kind of similar to a sidekick.
I think it's still live. I'm not sure. I'll have to search it up.
Yes, and I think we had those guys on. All right. Thank you so much, man. Thank you, comrade. Stick around if you can. We'll do viewers on stage.
Sure.
See who wants to jump up.
I can stay maybe till 30 next hour, but I'm not sure. We will
All
see.
right. Whatever you can do. Comrade, thank you, man. The youngest known Monero user and developer that I know of. Comrade, how old are you? You're 15?
Yes, I'm 15, but I wouldn't state myself as a Monero developer, just a simple developer.
Okay.
You know,
Well,
I only have developed the subscription wallets and the business wallet so far, but
that's big, man. That's more than most have done. So kudos
Yeah.
to you. All right, moving along. Thank you as always, comrade. And once again, stick around if you can. Tux, you want to run the viewers on stage if you have anybody that wants to jump up?
We do. Let's do that.
It's the Viewers on Stage segment. It's that time where we invite you, the viewers, up on stage to comment on anything you've heard so far today, ask the guest a question, or maybe talk about one of the news topics. Come on down.
Shortwave Surfer, I'm trying to invite you up, but it looks like you don't have a mic or webcam connected, so it's not going to let me.
He's going super.
Hello, gentlemen.
Anon, how's it going, man?
what's up?
How's my sound right now? I have the microphone really far away.
It's perfect.
Nice. Nice. I have no idea how like a $10 microphone can even sound good, but what a wonderful world we live in today.
I don't hear any static noise.
Because
whatsoever.
everything
Nice.
gets like ultra processed by whatever you're using now.
So one thing that I was thinking from the news segment that was kind of interesting was how many different people, including myself, like people who have been guests on Monerotopia, people who have chimed in, they have this running theme about how because the government corruption requires the existence of cash, or some other people are saying because government corruption benefits so greatly from the existence of Monero, we're all just super convinced that it's never going to go away. They're just going to try to find ways to like keep you from having it, right? It's just like guns will never go away. They just don't want you to have guns, you know? And I thought it was really interesting that all of the sudden there's all of this this news coming out trying to claim that, oh, the Nigerians are really all about using their CBDC now. And it's and yet like the people who are actually there are like, no, we hate these things. We're not using them. I don't know what they're talking about. Like they might take their free money and that's it, you know?
What do you think of that claim though? That like in Nigeria, cash isn't going anywhere because
I mean that's what I said over a year ago. Remember, like that's I mean that's exactly my position from the very beginning. That like corruption will always look for a means to protect its own ill-gotten gains. and cash is still the best vehicle for people to continue to control their people. So why would they get rid of it, right? I just don't see a better option for them to funnel their wicked deeds into something that works in the real economy.
Agreed. Remsey, what's going on, man?
Yo, yeah. I mean, I think the major problem right now is actually less so like the governments. Like, I think a major problem is also the corporate structure where there's just bad incentives. Like, all the big companies are owned by the banks, and it's not necessarily the governments that in that issue. It's more like the economy is just based on this like system of just bad incentives through corporations. But yeah, I'm big into like token ownership. And so, yeah, I'm a Solidity developer, so I work on Ethereum, but, yeah, if Monero were programmable, I would program on it.
Cool. I think it's the first time you've been on Monerotopia, right? I think I've seen the name around, but I don't think, have you jumped up on stage before?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. Very cool, man. So what is your overall take then on Monero? So you're ETH, you're more of an ETH guy, but
I hold
what value do you see in Monero?
Unspecified amount of Monero.
Okay, all right. What do you got?
Until that awful boating accident. I was there. He lost it all in a boating accident.
I prefer to say that it went up my nose.
Big brass balls on this guy. Yeah, I just snorted it off.
That is the base value of Monero, they say, right? What do you guys think of these allegations that Hamas was using cryptocurrency to raise funds, and the suggestion that they no longer use Bitcoin, they're using something else? How do you guys see this playing out?
I'd point out, I mean, it's almost certainly to some degree true, because who doesn't use every available financial funneling method? But I think that the real story that people are missing on that is so Binance was like the first people who helped him get rid of the accounts, right? And Binance is started by, at the very least, he was recently a CCP asset. But I mean, what are the odds that he's not currently a CCP asset? And then he starts an exchange in China, and then they let him leave with all of his money while they're simultaneously shutting it down.
Are you talking about CZ?
Yeah, and then he goes to Malta, and he starts working, and has like a special deal with the Bahamas as well. And then a bunch of English banking cartels work together with the guy to shut down all of the bank accounts, and that money will probably end up in Israel, right? And on top of that, all of the banks are calling them state assets. So in other words, they're saying that Hamas is, in some degree, they're recognizing its state autonomy, like its national autonomy. They're freezing the actual monetary assets, and they're also calling it a financial vehicle, right? Like all of these crypto donations, they're calling them financial vehicles. So it's like you're acknowledging that it's a financial asset. You're acknowledging that it is used for these processes of liquidity, but at the same time, they'll also prevent it from being used as money in other ways. And then on top of that, this one guy at the exchange level is only able to do it with certain currencies. So this whole story has made the case that the Monero people have been making for years now. That number one, Monero works. Number two, exchanges are the problem. Number three, governments around the world are colluding as one homogenous blob to prevent you from having freedom. And so China and Israel are supposed to be adversarial right now, right? And Iran and Hamas are supposed to be adversarial to the West, and Russia's supposed to be and yet it's really bizarre how they all come together at specific times when it's in the interest of preventing you from having financial freedom, and putting money into the pockets of banks, no matter which banks they are, like Russian banks, British banks, Israeli banks. And it just shows you also that like the odds of this whole thing not being coordinated from on high it's already virtually zero, right?
1 second. Ramsey, you commented that I shouldn't use loud clicky keys because AIs can process that. Is that sarcastic, or are you speaking?
No, that's a real. I mean, like, yeah, I've seen that AI. Like, I've read that report. So, like, I don't know if that AI exists now, but it might in 5 years if you're still using the same password. Someone could use that AI to.
But how would it determine what keys I pressed? Like, how does it know what keyboard I have? First of all, second of all, how would it determine the key sound? Like, there is no associated keys with the sound.
Yeah, well, it's the distance. If they know the layout of your keyboard, they're probably going to assume you're using a QWERTY keyboard, or maybe whatever keyboard is common in your country. I don't know. It's a thing. That's I just would watch out for that.
Yeah, but for example, G like this, which sounds as an H like this, is the same.
Well, it can tell the difference though. But like the thing is that it has to know your exact keyboard, or else it has no way of knowing where it starts. But if it knows the keyboard, then it can basically map based on sound how close the keys are together.
But basically, a G and an H would sound the same because it's almost the half of the keyboard. So, like,
there's a difference. Like, even if it's unperceivable to you, there's still a difference.
Yeah, if you were typing like FF, it would sound slightly different than if you're typing F like any other letter, because it's like just the same finger twice.
I could hear the difference. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, can we all just agree that it's time to stop feeding microphone data to a bunch of centralized AI monoliths? Like, I mean, who cares what they're using? Maybe they just shouldn't have the data in the first place, and we should just stop using that crap no matter what. Like,
+1.
It's too late. They can deepfake all of us at this point.
Well, yeah.
So I also, Bawdy was talking about how the correlation in Bitcoin had been unbelievably correlated for like this really long run. And then all of a sudden the correlation had dropped to 0. So if you ever follow all of those like really unbearable people that run with like Davos and, you know, the international banker meetings and all of that crap, a whole bunch of them just started pumping Bitcoin like maybe 5 or 6 days ago within their own little circles. And I was also thinking that it was really interesting, and I had mentioned it before, like, so the Chinese government had made it illegal to collect in the context of the of CZ. Like, they had made it illegal, but they let CZ leave with all of his assets and go to another country and all that. And at a time where you can't legally mine Bitcoin in China, they have all of these miners right next to all of these government agencies and right next to. But also buried in that story is Microsoft is maintaining all of these different government assets.
Yes.
They have like the worst security record ever. and so it's just like, not only is the base compromised, but then the people hosting their data is compromised, and their power grid is compromised. And they literally have Chinese soldiers just meandering between the base and the Microsoft. And it's built right on top of their network. Like, it's literally on top of their network. Like, it's just unbelievable how, like, it's all pretend, right? They have to be in on it together. There's no way they overlook this. And then the story emerges just in time, as if the buildings were all slapped up yesterday, right? As if they didn't have to do all of these permits and do this special stuff with the grid, and as if the military wasn't watching what was being built next to their air base, right? Just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the people just suddenly had a Bitcoin miner, and there was just suddenly these Chinese soldiers living in Wyoming. And now we need to run a New York Times headline at the same time as we're telling everybody else they can't have Bitcoin, but we're also going to pump it to our buddies. And it's just so like patently absurd. The whole thing is so ridiculous that like I'll leave it there. But you can see what I'm saying, how like they have to be in on it together. There's no other explanation.
Solid points.
The one thing that gets me about Binance is they still have that BNB token, like FTX had the FTX token, and that's like allegedly like $86 billion market cap or something. But it's like that's just according to them. Like they have like 90, like according to them, they also have 99% of the volume. So how are you making that? Where's that? That's 86 billions like backed by nothing. So I think that if there is some kind of shift in the market, BNB token could be like a cause of that.
And think about the fact that like this war supposedly popped off like 4 days ago or whatever. And Binance just like immediately freezes accounts and immediately hands over all of this banking data and so on. Like there's no attempt to contest it. Apparently they don't even need to like do any research. They don't need to confirm that the people actually earned their finances legitimately or whatever.
No
like
process.
And then they're also appraised at, $100 bajillion, and, the SEC doesn't care. And, the International Monetary Fund doesn't care. But God help you if you claim that your house is worth more than it is when you sell it,
What you do is you just use your Monero and go on moneromarket.io, and you can buy Delta 8 THC and get high.
Delta 8 sucks. You gotta get the real shit. Pumpkin, what's going on, man?
Hey guys, I'm good. How are you?
Good. What do you got for us? Any comments?
Nah.
Okay.
I'm just enjoying your stream.
Shortwave Surfer, what do you think, man? What do you think? You think there's going to be a ramp up against cryptos like Monero, given what we're seeing with these allegations that Hamas is being funded with crypto?
Probably, but that's the thing about Monero is that it can survive this regulation and crap like that. It's built to withstand this. It's not built to fail in an adversarial case.
Agreed. Any other comments, guys? The last game on. You got anything else?
So I noticed that I would imagine you're definitely not alone in this. A lot of people wondering like, okay, Monero OS, like what's the point, right? And it can be kind of difficult to explain, but I would actually like to crystallize like a 10,000 foot view of why I think it matters so much. And it actually kind of lines up with why I was so all about the Monero Nodo thing. But they actually serve two different purposes of the same goal, right? So people having their own trusted nodes and being able to use light wallets is incredible for like adoption purposes, right? If some particular person has a problem with syncing their wallets or has it, or they don't want to do the headache of maintaining, you just like there's certain values in the way that a bank maintains your bank account, right? A Nodo allows a small group of people to maintain the account. Well, on the other side of things, Monero OS has the power to get people invested in the success of Monero and glean a piece of the action. So what I mean by that is a couple of people that I deal with on a regular basis, they keep a Linux distribution on a thumb drive like everywhere they go. And then when people are having computer problems, you have like 5 or 6 different thumb drives with 5 or 6 different Linux distributions that might match closely with what the person might need. Everything from like Puppy Linux to some Ubuntu distribution that's like more, for a nicer computer or whatever. And when people are struggling to use their computer because, it sucks because it's got that awful virus known as Windows or something like that on it, you can help them right there, right now. But the other thing is, you can allow somebody to immediately start using their computer to mine Monero, and you could hang out with them for a day or whatever, or you hang out with them for 2 days, or you could just come back in a couple of days and say, hey, you got this payout, you got this much Monero for just like running it on a computer that was sitting there in your living room or your bedroom or whatever. And you can even send it to them, and you can be like, you earned this. You built this by helping this community secure the network. And then all of a sudden there's something very real about the process of what mining is, how it's not this like ethereal thing that other people do and they don't. But then the other thing is that might be an easy way in for them to continue doing it. And it only costs you $10 to just give them the ability to mine for, I mean, you would imagine forever. Or they could then, once they get used to it, make their own and then give that one to someone else. It's like a pay it forward system. The barrier to entry, the cost goes down, the yields improve, and they can see with their own eyes the process actually doing what it's supposed to be doing at the very floor of the technical level, all the way up to having Monero in a wallet on their phone that they can spend right now. So in my opinion, it's a massive onboarding tool for people who might be on the fence.
The way I do my mining is I have Monero D, P2 pool, and XMRig proxy set up on one computer. And so all of the computers that I have around the house that are just on all the time anyway, I just direct them through XMRig to the XMRig proxy and have all that hash rate going to the one XMRig proxy and just use it on P2 pool.
Nice.
That is a really good idea, actually.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
That would make it a lot easier for all of these computers around here to start doing.
Because that way what I do is I named my computer, like the main one, Miner 1. So all I've got to do is set up XMRig to go to miner1.local port 3333 and get its stuff from there. And I don't have to worry about the P2 pool setup, the proxy, the Monero node. It's all on one computer. I can just go there and change something if I need to. Like I needed to update my Monero D earlier. Just log in, SSH, download the new Monero D, set it up, and log back out.
I'm super impressed with your whole model there, but your naming creativity could use a little work, bro.
Or use
Monero Miner 1. Like, come on, man.
Yes, it's just called It's called Miner 1. And yes, my naming creativity sucks.
HBS saying Trezor announced the Trezor Safe 3 this week with support for Monero. That's cool.
And a secure element.
I wish
probably like an ARM trust zone type thing, I imagine.
I wish Bawdy was still here because I wanted to ask him about the DeFi Pulse Index, DPI, because I don't want to really be in USDC because of the fact that they're inflating the currency to all hell. I figured if I was in something like DPI, since it's an index, it would stay decently stable, and I can still borrow from it because I can't borrow from PaxG.
It would be hemorrhaging quite as much money as you were if you were in air quote stablecoin.
Yeah, because I can't, they don't accept PaxG as collateral for loans, which is unfortunate.
What is unfortunate?
But they do accept DPI and USDC and Matic and stuff like that. I don't want to be in necessarily Matic though, because it's one single currency. I figure if I'm gonna do a DPI, it's a basket of currencies, so it'd be a little better.
I had one other story that had been brought up with the news segment that continues to fascinate me. So the digital yuan, there's all kinds of ways that you can use it without a phone. Now, like up in Prudhoe, for example, we found some pretty crafty ways to be able to use Monero while there was no internet, or, there was all kinds of ways. But the thing is I would really like to hear more, or I guess I'll just do the homework on my own about, the systems that they had developed to use digital currencies offline, whether or not you had your wallet or your phone or whatever. and see a project that was going to take the serious endeavor to incorporate an offline wallet model for Monero. I mean, I would definitely be willing to throw down on that too. But the other thing is that ties to the story about cash in Nigeria, right? Where one of the reasons why cash is so popular is because you can just like use it peer to peer, right? And it's easily fungible into a different form of the same monetary system that you can use digitally. But having like peer to peer offline exchanges has another level to it that interests me, which is the security aspect. When Monero changes hands outside of the chain and then resyncs with the chain, if that is in fact how they're doing it, it's like another ring signature that has its own level of untraceability, right? So if you were to just anonymously buy and sell peer-to-peer, even if you ended up with the same amount of Monero, you just did like a offline ring signature exchange and then everything kind of resyncs. That would be absolutely fascinating to me.
All right. Any other comments? I think I gotta make moves here. I got my
likewise.
Got some family things to do. Anybody else want to throw any info out before we close it out?
There is one thing.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, I had a question about why is Monero's hash rate so gone up so high? Like it has increased by 1 gigahertz, 1 gigahashes, but like after the Bitmain release, it's ASICs. But if you look at the map, to increase 1 gigahertz of hashes, you need like 10,000 of those Bitmain ASICs. So did people buy 10,000 ASICs, or why did it increase so much? That was my question.
Well, I mean, they're technically not ASICs, but they're just like pretty optimized miners in a kind of. But I don't know. Does anyone have any speculation on the pretty rapid plus 1 gigahertz? And that's like 50% of the hash rate over.
It's happened quite a few times. Go ahead.
Energy price inflation has been down. So, yeah, I mean, could be just maybe more knowledge about the network and energy prices not going up.
And maybe Bitmain maybe they already have new Monero miners that they're testing right now, since they're already selling off those old ones. Because, like we've talked about before, they used those for several years before they sold them. So chances are maybe they already have another one that they're testing or something.
Yeah, another thing that Bawdy had pointed out, I think he doesn't give the strength of his evidence the credit that it deserves, which is he had pointed out that they were almost certainly mining and then using it to suppress the price, right? Because if you can print an infinite amount of money, it's easier to tap into the energy sector and lose a little bit of money to manipulate the price of Monero. If you got caught short, right, it's easy to just take a bunch of fiat, turn electricity into Monero, and then push the price down. But another thing that I'd point out that has happened before on a slightly smaller scale is it doesn't take much to basically, remote access somebody else's computer, get it to do a bunch of mining for you, and then, send the Monero to you.
Oh, something I should have added to news relating to that is that there's been a war in hackers taking over Kubernetes clusters and setting up Monero mining pods.
Oh, yeah, that was exactly where I was going with it, was just the idea that it all you would have to do is find a way, like a 0-day, even some kind of 0-day exploit for something that people are using to control a lot of separate computers, and you could walk away with a tremendous hash rate. And the thing is that has almost no effect on like the quality of Monero itself, but it has a huge price impact as far as the efficacy of a miner,
Well, the cloud as we know it is also being attacked by AI because they can now solve CAPTCHAs. And so like cloud computing has this huge security vulnerability that's just opened up recently. with that. So
Yeah, and mining Monero would be the most obvious way to use something like that in order to capitalize financially on all of these vulnerabilities. Which, by the way, is another point about how like Monero is not going anywhere, right? Like powerful, intelligent people, like what is your other option if you want to engage in cyber warfare and you want to financialize it? I mean, Monero is so obviously the right answer for anybody engaging in these sort of activities. It's not going anywhere.
If you're stealing computing power, is Monero the most efficient thing to use it for? Mining Monero? I mean,
well, efficiency is less of an issue when it's free for you. It's the other guy paying for it. So it's not the efficiency, it's like how easily it is to get away with it and how liquid it is.
Yeah, it's because you get away with, but you know, that's the main thing is that it's you don't have to like think about it because a lot of ways people get caught is, you know, because of the currency they're using. But also, like I found this one article, CrowdStrike discovers first ever Darrow. Also, Darrow has been on the rise in this too. So there, it's pretty funny.
Darrow is pretty awesome.
Why Darrow? Why they?
Because it's also I've been starting to look into it a little bit, but it's got a lot of interesting privacy aspects to it.
It's a Monero smart contract. You could think of it like the Monero Ethereum.
Basically, they've been Monero people have been fighting to take over a lot of like servers, Kubernetes clusters, and to the point where they've been writing malware that will remove Darrow stuff to make it mine Monero again. It's pretty interesting.
Wow.
There's a lot
there's a whole bunch of pen testing for both of them, by the way. It's super cool because like the greater hacker community is inadvertently just dumping research data into both of the dev communities because the financial and this is gonna just explode, by the way. It's like we haven't seen anything yet. It's because think of all the people that right now they're trying to get like documents from people like NVIDIA, or they're trying to get documents from Sony or whatever. Think about what they're going to do when they find out that instead of documents, they could literally just turn them into like a profit generating mechanism and punish them financially, because nobody cares about all of that crap about like, oh, they were up to this or there was sexual harassment that was covered up. Nobody even cares anymore anyway. But you can hurt their bank account, right? So it's such a powerful way to strike people with different ideologies that like this is the future direction of cyber warfare at the corporate level. Because you can on an individual level, you can hit somebody really hard and then profit from it, right? And so in the Art of War, it talks about like feeding on your enemy's supplies rather than your own. Well, if you make $100 mining Monero at the cost of another guy's $1,000 in power bills, and it also slows down their network, and it also makes them spend all of this money like fixing their security vulnerabilities, and like you can hit a guy for like $1 million and walk away with $1,000.
Okay, this is really funny. After discovering the Darrow cryptojacking campaign, CrowdStrike subsequently detected in February 2023 a modified Monero campaign attacking Kubernetes and kicking out the Darrow miner to mine Monero instead. That's hilarious. These people are like fighting each other to steal CPU cycles. But it looks like Darrow offers larger rewards, so that's why it's been starting to get used a little bit more. It's got some privacy features, but with bigger rewards. It's not the same thing as Monero, though. It doesn't provide the same utility. It's very different. So it's not really a fair comparison.
Yeah, they're not trying to be cash. They're trying, as my understanding is, they're trying to be a smart contract that has like longevity to it. So providing like some of the benefits of Ethereum, but for people who are privacy focused.
I would like to, before we end this, briefly shill I did an episode on the Monero.com YouTube channel tutorial for how to set up Monero Suite on Ubuntu or Debian. So if you want an easy way to set up a node and have a block explorer locally, that's a way to do it.
Remember your interview with Zilinar Zai there, Doug?
Yes.
With the right to transact. I actually went ahead and at the very end of that episode, he said that you could email him to purchase the book with Monero. So I went ahead and emailed him and purchased the book with Monero. I gave him 25 Monero for it.
Oh, amazing.
Because Amazon wanted 18 Monero. So I'm like, okay, if Amazon wants that, I want a stable price. So I'll offer him 25.
Very cool.
I think that's the big thing about Monero is that we need to start pricing things in Monero. So like Amazon was selling it for 18, and I'm like, well, if I give him 18, then the price will change, and he'll be either out some or whatever. So I'm like, I'll give him 25, and if he'll keep the price the same, that way it doesn't fluctuate.
Awesome.
All
Very
right.
cool that he actually lived up to it and accepted Monero. Did we see
slowly dwindling away?
But before we cut it off, did we see any change in pool distribution given this rise in hash rate? Does anybody notice that?
Let me look.
I haven't looked. I've just been using my P2 pool.
I'm gonna check too and see if I can find different data.
I mean, to be honest, looking at the 7-day history, looks like support XMR has gone up a bit. Which usually it was Nanopool that is using the highest. It's got the
Can
highest
you share the screen?
percentage. Yep.
Yes,
Let me pull that up.
Cool.
Yep. So right now, support XMR is at 34.9%, which is a little different because usually Nanopool is the one that's got the biggest percentage of hash rate. But you see over the 7-day, it's gone up a little bit. It's gone up from under under a gigahertz to now it's over gigahertz, and Nanopool has just been like going up and down this weird kind of cycle of people using, not using. Then Hashvault is 20%. So these are the big three players right now. And can I pull up an even bigger history?
So support XMR took on most of the new hash
Based
power.
on the 7-day, I'm trying to see if I can find a I don't know if the site will provide me bigger graphs or not. But yeah, support XMR right now, based on their percentage compared to what Nanopool usually is, it looks like they probably took on most of that hash rate.
And Nanopool used to be the leader, right?
Yeah, Nanopool historically has been the one that's leading. They've been the one that multiple times have gotten close to the 50%.
Right.
People are like, whoa, back off, and then they drop off quite a lot. But out support XMR, 35%. So while they're not at the, they're not quite to the 50. It kind of sucks that we have the pool issue right now, where we've got 3 pools that are taking up like 80% of the hash rate, basically.
What percentage does P2 pool have right now?
It's basically 5%.
Yeah, it's
5%.
like
It's not really much. Okay.
It generally seems to hover between 5 and 7, like 5.8 and like 7 or so. I've noticed that a lot.
Well, right now, since the hash rate is 3.2 gigahash, it's only like 3. It's less than 3% right now.
Ow.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's at 9.5 mega hash, and the total hash rate right now is 3.2 gigahash. So.
Oh yeah. One thing that I have noticed is the actual hash rate of P2 pool. Almost every time I look, it's a little more static because people seem to not really care what the cost benefit analysis of mining is.
Yeah, I'm like, for example, with me, I'm mining probably at a loss. Like technically I'm mining at a loss because I bought a computer with the specific thing of mining Monero with it. So I'm mining at a loss, but I don't care because what I want is the Monero.
If you lived up here, it's actually quite profitable because like 100% of your waste goes to heating your house.
Now that's going to be nice for me during this winter, but I've been mining since April. So most of my mining has been during summer, which has not been fun.
Why are we seeing an uptick in P2 pool though? I mean, the incentive is there to use it, right? I don't really understand why people aren't.
Because it's more complicated. Because when you first start mining, you can just literally go support XMR 3333 on your XM rig with your address and be done. Whereas with P2 pool, you got to set up a node, then you got to set up the P2 pool, then you got to set up XM rig. So it's just more complicated.
By
and
the
you
way,
get a more consistent payout.
Yeah, and another thing that I'd point out about what Comrade was trying to say earlier is a lot of these problems will be solved with the development of, like things like an independent OS and things like a thumb drivable, like immediately works, just plug it into a computer, like
Goopax, just use Goopax.
Yeah, Goopax is another good example. But there's a lot of people who are probably using support XMR. The only reason is they have rented server space. They need to have it either way. So it's just easy, even for like highly tech savvy people like network admins and stuff, using support XMR for like their excess computing power is just faster and easier. And they don't have to keep up with the latest on like, what update does what or what. And if they've already been using it and it continues to work, then the incentive is there for them to keep using it until eventually not only the payouts are more on par with support XMR, but if the price of Monero goes up even, $40, $50, all of a sudden that, that 6% that support XMR or 0.6% that it charges you is going to start to amount to enough to do the extra legwork of using P2Pool. But right now, I mean, you're talking about pennies even at a network admin level. It's, like the price has to go up for it to be more fiscally like reasonable to switch from what you're already doing.
I want to see. Okay.
I was just going to point out that support XMR's fee is 0.6%. Nanopools is 1%. Could be part of the reason why there's been a switch.
It'd be nice to see, and it may do this already, but that Monero OS that was being discussed earlier, if you can just literally put your address into it and then boot it up and it starts P2Pool immediately and starts XMRig immediately with your address.
Yeah.
Literally all you did was turn the dang thing on without having to do anything at all.
It's so close too. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but like they're so fucking close to it being at that level. And that's what we're holding out on. I mean, just remember, like Monero people, not to brag or anything, but we're pretty far ahead of the curve on what people are looking for, right? And we're willing to do the homework to figure out how to make these things work in our lives today, where they're at right now. But that said, these things usually take a while to come around to the point where the ease of use and the value proposition has been settled in everybody's minds. I've been like, every shirt I own that I wear out in public has an XMR logo on it one way or another. People I've been saying this stuff to for 3 years now are finally like, hey, can you set me up with someone? Yeah, I got you,
All right,
guys. We will call it there. Great as always. Thank you, Leska Anon. Thank you, Shortwave Surfer.
thanks to the new 2 people who came on.
Yeah, for those
Ramsey
guys.
and Pumpkin.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. We do these shows every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We will see you next week.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Monerotopia episode. We stream live shows every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can find and subscribe to our show on YouTube and Odyssey, or listen to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or join us in the Monerotopia Telegram group. See you all.